Hey guys, Mike here. So boy, looks like we got some nice news coming out of Switzerland about US and China trade negotiations, and they're using words like deal and stuff. And as I'll show you, the futures are, nicely up to say the least. We'll see if that's going to hold overnight, and we'll get into all that stuff. We'll also talk about some charts like Tesla, which had a big day Friday. Some stocks that you would think would be heavily affected if we do gap up in the morning. That's for sure. I don't know if you remember those options I told you about. Some people bought like 35 million in Tesla options. I think it was Thursday. I don't know if they cash those out, but whoo boy, they'll be up huge. And so it's just, again, a lot of earnings, CPI, PPI this week, all that stuff. So it's going to be a busy, busy week. They also said they would announce something on the China trade negotiations midday tomorrow. So we're going to see if it's going to be a sell the news event or not, if they're going to lower tariffs. That's what we got to find out tomorrow. But when you look here, this was the headline coming out. It says, top U.S. officials emerge from China trade talks, touting substantial progress and deal somehow. And that's when the futures went nuts, is when they mentioned a deal, which I'll be stunned if they have one. But here's the futures right now. We'll see if this is going to hold overnight or not. But you can see currently this is Treasury Secretary Bessent. After this was done, just in the club. You know, old man can dance, baby. Look at him going crazy. And of course, that is not the Treasury Secretary. It would be hilarious if it was, but it is not. So again, we'll see what they got to say. Let me know in the comments. What do you think it's going to be Friday? What happened? Of course, the president came out and said, I think I showed you that. Actually, maybe what, Thursdays or something like that. You better buy stocks, whatever. But we'll see. I mean, I think if they come out with some kind of trade deal, which I'll be stunned if they have one, good. Maybe they cut tariffs. Maybe we hold the gains. But I think if they come out and the tariffs are still 145%, and they say they're just going to continue the talks, I can't imagine those gains are going to hold. So we're going to find out what happens tomorrow. Let me know what you think is going to happen. But when you look at the S&P, it's kind of a coincidence, of course, that the future's up where they're at, because when you look at this, we'll end up being back in positive gamma territory. Let's say we go up 1.5% in the morning. You also are going to come up to a daily fair value gap, what's left of it. And on top of that, you're going to have the 200 moving average right there. And so that's going to be very interesting. We'll also have the 50-week right below it. So we'll finally get above the 50-week if we open up even 1% or higher. And of course, that's been a problem lately because we haven't been able to get above it and close above it. And so you can see also in that area will be above the golden pocket at that point in time. Again, we'll pull up the 50-week for you so you can see that. So a lot of stuff going on in this area right here. So the next check to have, again, we've gone through a big checklist, is to actually make the 50-week support, right? Come down, retest it, and bounce. That would be nice, okay? And if we can get above the 200, hey, that's even better. And if they do now something big with China, you can pretty much almost bet money, you would think, it wouldn't be a sell. That wouldn't be a sell the news event, but you never know. I mean, again, but nothing past the market, that is for sure. But of course, that white line there is 57.84, which will also be a big area of resistance right there. You look at the momentum indicator and stuff. We just look at the RSI right here, and you can see that even after this crazy move up of almost, what is that, like 20% up, still not even close to being overbought, which is kind of very surprising. And this is on the daily right here. So that's pretty surprising. So you still got plenty of room to go, but that's how oversold we actually got. And so it is above 50, which is a good thing. Again, you go to the 4 hour, not even overbought on the 4 hour. Okay, just finally got overbought on the 2 hour, came back down some. And so, again, room to run if this market actually, believe it or not, wants to go there. MACD above zero line on the daily right there. So now you got bulls back in charge of this thing, pushing it higher. Okay, so that is a good thing to see. Again, on the weekly, you still got work to do, no doubt about that right there. But as far as the daily and 4 hour, that does look good, and it does have room to the upside. Okay, so keep that in mind. You see, there's the weekly right there. RSI still below 50, should maybe open up above the 50, but MACD still below that zero line. So on the higher time frame, the bulls are not in charge. Now, I don't know if you remember these right here. I put this in Thursday night's video of these millions, like 35 million of June 6th, 300 calls for Tesla. I don't know if they cashed out on Friday, but I wouldn't have blamed them because they probably got pretty dang big because Tesla went absolutely crazy. But if they're still holding it, it means they're expecting more of a move, which they could get. And you see Tesla right here, above the zero line on the MACD, above the 50 on the RSI on the daily, still not overbought in any way, shape, or form. Again, broke above that trend line, which we've been waiting for a while, year-to-date anchor VWAP, and it actually closed above the year-to-date anchor VWAP, the 200 moving average, and that trend line. So if it can hold that, like I said, we could continue to get a move up in that shaded area, and you're looking like 315, 317, 321 is what I'd be looking for to begin with. Could go as high as 330, but remember, Tesla likes to do what? It loves to run up into events. We talked about it bottoming sometime in April, May, running up into June for the robo-taxi event, and loves to run up into the events, and then usually the events are disappointing and it sells down on that day or right after. This right here is a weekly fair value gap. So as I'm saying, don't be surprised if it cuts right through that. That's going to be super bullish, but don't be surprised if it grinds its way, because once we hit it on Friday, that's when we sold back down, right? So usually those large fair value gaps are where you'll start to see it stall out, see some rejections, but it could move through it. It's usually just slower, right? And the 0.79 fib is right above that. But when you look at the overall, remember this is a double bottom, and so as a double bottom, it can absolutely run all the way up to around 350 to 360, somewhere in that range right there, I would say. You know, this got marked out like 368, but I'd say anywhere from 355, 360, and that's all the way to June, not like tomorrow or the next day or anything. Now, a stock that loves to ride its coattails, I talked about this weeks ago, and so far this has played out, is Rivian. I said if Tesla goes, watch Rivian to break through the first trend line, which it did. It's going to hit the second trend line, which it did, and hit that white line to the penny. So that's where we stalled yesterday, okay? If Tesla continues to break out, Rivian's going to probably move with it and go to 1677, 1865, and then 2342 if we can continue going. I'm talking about like all the way through like June, not like in 1 day or 2 days, but again, those are the levels. And you can pull a Tesla chart over the Rivian. I showed it to you. And so we've seen this many, many, many times. And so just watch for that, okay? I know all the news on Tesla has been horrific, hadn't affected it a bit, okay? I'd say it's the options market that runs it. So we see those options flows start rolling in, then Tesla's going with it. Nvidia, you would think if something does go out with China, this is going to basically help Nvidia more than anything else. Remember, we didn't even have the chip tariffs yet. I assume they're still going to do those, but you got a lot of confluence right here with the golden pocket, 200 daily moving average, 50-week moving average, big fair value gap right there. So that is a good target for Nvidia between 118 and 130. And other things I want to see here is if stocks like HIMS and Palantir and these high beta stocks are going to continue to move. Right now, you finally got HIMS with this big move up, obviously overbought. But when you look at it and you look at the last run, you can see how overbought a stock like this can get, right? I mean, where it's at now is absolutely nothing. Okay, but it basically has been consolidated in the last 2 days. We're going to see if this continues that run up towards that shaded area between like 51 and 65, I believe it is, which is where that gap is. Or are we going to come back down here, mitigate this big fair value gap, and then push from there? That's what we got to see. Because one thing that was happening, I think Palantir, like money was coming out of Palantir as it was selling down, and I think it was going into HIMS. And then of course you saw Palantir have a nice recovery over the last couple of days. I mean, it was red on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, not by much, but it had a big move up on Thursday. Let's pull it up and see what we got here. And again, this is one of those ones where, right here is just filling that gap. Well, if you want to short it, maybe they'll be right. We'll see. But if the market gaps up tomorrow, I can imagine Palantir, who's one of the strongest, I think it's the strongest performer in the S&P for 2025. I can't imagine it's not going with it. And if it gets above 124.62, I mean, there's no resistance. And we saw what happened last time. Every time it sets a new high, it runs, right? And so this is a big high-performance stock right now. But I want to see if these are the type of stocks that continue to run, or is more money going to start pushing into the MAX 7 as we get through May and June. Again, if it comes back down, that's where I target around 99 to 103 right there for a bounce. That's where it bounced. I told you in that shaded box, if it comes down, it's going to bounce in that box probably, and that's where it bounced at. Okay, that's usually what happens. So you got to pick out these larger fair value gaps. There's a weekly fair value gap. And so again, this is, I think I read this the other day, if I'm not mistaken, it is the strongest performing stock in the S&P for 2025. Now, two stocks to watch are going to be Apple and Google. They have not really participated a whole lot over the last week. In this one, they're showing a lot of weakness. They're highly weighted stocks. You can see the RSIs are below 50, unlike the rest of these, which have gained in momentum. And so we got to see if these are going to start getting some love. They're kind of battling each other with this Apple and Google news, of course, but Apple being the second and third heaviest weighted stock, whichever ETF you're looking at. And then, of course, Google heavily weighted as well. We need to see if these are going to start participating. That shaded area has held for Google multiple times. A lot of people think this is an overreaction on the Apple news. We'll have to see. Because remember, search engine is like 53% of Google's total revenue. And that kind of surprised me when I read that. But so yes, if they end up getting kicked off of all the Apple devices and Apple wants to do their own thing with AI, It's kind of a big deal. Okay, so we'll see how this works out. Again, it works out in their antitrust case though, because that means they don't have a monopoly. Now, when it comes to earnings, there's a whole boatload, especially high beta earnings coming out. You can see on Monday, Plug, AST is going to be a big one. I think AST has done pretty good all year. Archer, Hertz, Blink, like these are the high flying type of stocks that can move, 20, 30% in a day. JD.com, we'll see what Honda's got to say. Intuitive, Under Armour. Then we go over and look at NU. Oklo is going to be another one. Then we move over to Wednesday. And in the morning, don't really see too much anything. In the afternoon, Cisco is going to be a big one to look out for. And then maybe Luminar is another one. And then when you get over to Thursday, that's when some big ones are going to report. Got Alibaba, Walmart, John Deere. And then we move over into the afternoon. Applied Materials, Kava is going to be two to watch out for. And then Friday, nothing really to speak of. When it comes to data, however, Monday, don't have anything really to worry about. But Tuesday, here's the big one, right? Before the bell opens, core CPI, regular CPI month over month, CPI year over year is what we're going to be looking for. Then Wednesday, all you have is crude oil inventories. And then we fly over to Thursday. You're going to have a core PPI, core retail sales, PPI month over month. Normal retail sales month over month, unemployment claims, Empire State Manufacturing Index, Philly Fed Manufacturing Index, and then Fed Chair Powell speaks before the opening bell as well. Then you'll have industrial production month over month, business inventories. Normally I would not pay attention to this, but with all these different ships not coming from China, got to pay attention to it. Mortgage delinquency is going to be a big one. And then Friday, we got building permits, housing starts, import prices month over month. Again, I would never listen to that, but now I am. And then preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment and inflation expectations, which is definitely biased. So we'll see how it turns out this time. So anyway, that was a mouthful. Hope you guys end up having a great rest of your Mother's Day. Let's see if we open up big tomorrow and make some money. Please hit the like and subscribe button on your way out. Think about signing up for the membership and less than McDonald's combo, and that's everything you get with it. And I will see you guys tomorrow.